I just want to do God's will.
What you're seeking is a blessing from God.
You must expect a miracle.
You have the power of choice.
Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Life Today Live. I'm Randy Robinson. Great to have you here today. I am very excited. I am a C.S. Lewis fan. I know you hear that amongst Christians all the time. Well, there's a very good reason for that. But maybe you just know the Chronicles of Narnia or something. C.S. Lewis was obviously a very influential writer, Christian thinker, and very celebrated amongst Christians. And like I said, for very good reason. Well, before the pandemic came and clipped a lot of things in our life, there was this production going around called The Most Reluctant Convert. And that thing hit, I've got the numbers here, 287 performances in 64 cities. A live stage production, and the gentleman who was doing that was named McLean. Well, they have adapted that into a movie. And so coming up very soon, I'll give you the dates. Matter of fact, well, November 3rd, Wednesday, is the premiere of this in many cities across the U.S. I know in my area you can see it again in the theaters on Sunday, November 7th. So coming up quick. But take a look at this. Here's the preview for the film adaptation of The Most Reluctant Convert.
I never cared for my name, Clive Staples. The world came to know me as C.S. Lewis. Perhaps you read my books. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the most famous, but there's one story that's not so well known. It's my story. And who better to tell it than me? Cheers.
Hey, Jack, no, stop! Don't disturb your father!
Boys!
Your mother loves you very much.
At 14, I ceased to be a Christian. She was the first woman to speak to my blood.
I love the smell of bunting.
And I was undone.
Have you nothing to say in your defense?
William Kirkpatrick, the Great Knock.
Either there's no God behind the universe, a God indifferent to good and evil, or worse, an evil God.
Do you believe that logic and reason bring forth indisputable truth?
I do.
And are your moral and aesthetic judgments valid and meaningful?
They are.
For the first time, I examined myself with a serious, practical purpose. What I found appalled me.
How could a mere man be called a great moral teacher and say the sort of things Jesus said?
Such as?
That night, as I read Phantastes, my imagination was baptized. The rest of me took a little longer.
You'll want to go to cslewismovie.com to see if that is in your area, and if not, there'll be ways to watch that in the future. But right now, I have Max McLean with me. Max, great to have you on Life Today Live.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. I love this as a C.S. Lewis fan, like I say, but also just from a production standpoint, my goodness. I've looked at I looked down the sheet, and there are some fabulous names associated with this in front of the camera as well as behind the camera. This is a top-notch production.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we owe a lot of it to the director, Norman Stone, who is a good friend of mine. And, he's got a long film history. He was with the BBC for many years. I think he's done over 100 films. Probably the most famous was the original BBC version of Shadowlands, which became a major motion picture with Anthony Hopkins and Deborah Winger. He also has done Beyond Narnia and many other works. And he has a vision similar to mine to produce film in my case, produce theater from a Christian worldview meant to engage a diverse audience. And both of us love the Lord, love the arts, and love C.S. Lewis.
All right, you just said something there that I got to ask you about, because not a lot of people go around thinking, I'm going to do stage productions from a Christian worldview. That's a tough thing to do, if we're honest.
Yeah.
What made you decide to do that?
Well, I'm an adult convert to Christianity, so as a convert, you realize you've been blinded a little bit, and when you come and recognize the truth of the Christian revelation, you want to find ways to articulate it, and of course, there's so much stigma attached to it. So you want to be creative, and I knew theater historically has been a very persuasive medium. So, and my background was theater. I was an actor before I became a Christian. So that means I didn't get the memo, I wasn't raised evangelical, so I didn't get the memo that Christians weren't supposed to be actors. So I thought, well, why not use the skills and techniques I developed in the theater and apply it to expressing the Christian revelation. And it was really an event waiting to happen. The way we do our work is what we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what material would be appropriate for reaching a diverse audience. And of course, if you do that, you're always landing on Lewis. And then the second thing, we try to execute at the highest levels that our budgets will allow, so that we can play in the great venues around the country. And we do, like, in Dallas, we're at the Majestic, we're at the great venues around the country. That's where we go. And then we ask people to support us. And so that's why we're called Fellowship for Performing Arts. That's the name of the organization, because it's a fellowship of people that believe art and theater from a Christian worldview can engage the imagination and influence culture.
Yeah, I love it. And I little secret, I did some theater in high school and college, so I actually have an affection for the theater, for the art of in person on stage. It's a wonderful thing. You said that you came to Christ as an adult convert. What's your story there? I'm very curious.
Well, I met a young woman who, if I wanted to be with her on Sunday, I'd have to go to church. And so I'd go, and it was mostly, I just didn't get it. But I do remember the Lord's Prayer being very meaningful, because I'd heard it before, and it just had a deep resonance to it. And then one of her friends told me that Jesus was a person in history, found out I was a history major, that's in my background, and said Jesus is a person in history, just like Lincoln, just like George Washington. Well, that was news to me, because I thought Jesus was fairy tales. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting about that, it was just this little nudge, this little spark that the Lord used to make me want to read the Bible, learn a little bit more about Jesus. And I tried to read the Bible before, but it just never went anywhere. This time I read it as a story, and I saw Jesus as a hero. And he came alive as a person. And it was almost immediate. The conversion was real right then. I knew the story was not only true, but was extraordinary. So I saw it. I think before it was prescriptive, it was irrelevant. Then all of a sudden became the most important truth in the world.
That's fun. I love it. I love it. All right. I want to talk a little bit about the movie. This is what it looks like, the poster for it. The Most Reluctant Convert. CSLewisMovie.com will tell you if it's in your city, and you should check that quick, because it's coming up November 3rd. How did the stage play come about that you were touring?
Well, I've been doing theater, and then a theater professor from Madison, New Jersey, really liked our work, and he suggested I'd make a really good screw tape. And I didn't know if that was a compliment or not. Screw tape letters, about a devil. Right. And of course that was a Lewis book that really resonated with me, but I didn't see it as theatrical literature. So I thought, if we could get the rights to it, he had an idea how to do it. I said, well, we'll have a go. And so we got the rights. And of course, if you're going to try to adapt a work of literature that's not intended for the stage, from the page to the stage. You really have to get inside it. And so that made me fall in love with Lewis, and we did The Great Divorce. And then both of those pieces are about spiritual warfare. And Lewis is very transparent about his own battles with spiritual warfare. Screw Tape is about, the battles of temptation, sins of commission. Well, The Great Divorce is about, how we resist the conscience, how we resist the Holy Spirit, sins of omission. And he's very, very transparent about his own battles. And of course, then I wanted to know more about his conversion, because he's kind of always referring back to it. And that led me to his memoir, Surprised by Joy. And so I studied that book very, very carefully. I would even say that I kind of transcribed it just to understand his thought processes and why he went from here to there, from this moment to this moment. And I really got inside it. And so we worked on it. We developed it in New York. We had a really good design team. And then we ran in New York for 15 weeks. I mean, the show had an audience. Wow. People, I think the title was intriguing. And, we like, stories of conversion. We like those in the sense of once I was this, now I was that. How did that happen? What would that journey look like? And it's inherently theatrical. So it had a really good run in New York, and then was touring all over the country. Then, of course, the pandemic just shut it down, like stop, and of course, we all thought it was going to be short,
right? Flatten the curve.
Like, 15 days to flatten the curve. And I kept thinking, well, what am I going to do for the next 2 weeks, and, and not only has it been 2 weeks, it's been almost 2 years, I guess. But in the course of that, Norman Stone and I had been working on the script, and I sent it to him, said, "What do you think about this? It's a potential movie down the road." And he said, "It has a lot of possibility. Let's work on it." So we were working on it, and then come June of 2020, he said, the British government's going to reopen filmmaking in Britain under very strict protocols. But I can get a crew together. I can get a cast together at really good rates because nobody's worked since March.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I asked them to confirm all that, make sure we had the locations we needed. I went to my board to see if we could get the funding to get it in the can. We worry about post-production and distribution later, and got the rights from the C.S. Lewis estate to do it on film. We already had the stage rights. We didn't have the film rights. And then I remember August 31st, I got on a plane as big as Air Force One with fewer people on it and flew from New York to London, went in quarantine for a couple of weeks, began filming in middle of September, finished middle of October, and then here we are 1 year later, we're about ready to release.
Yeah, now, if you saw the trailer when I showed it earlier, you would see that this is not just like the stage production. You actually
we opened it up for film. There's a stage production, one person show. This has 17 actors in 18 locations in and around Oxford, 190 extras, 270 costumes. Yeah. It was a pretty major thing. We have Lewis as the older man. I play Lewis looking back on his life as a boy and as a young, boy who lost his mother to cancer, had a terrible relationship with his father. The young man Lewis, who went off to war and became a scholar at Oxford. And then we're looking back, the period of time is Lewis is roughly 52 years old, somewhere around 1950, looking back at his young life from 1908, when he lost his mother to cancer, to Christmas communion 1931, when he takes communion for the first time as a believer in Christ.
What was maybe, for those who we've read Mere Christianity, we're familiar with the fiction works, maybe somebody's read Screwtape or something like that. What do people not know about C.S. Lewis?
Well, you don't get to the bottom of him. I think that's the biggest thing. The depth, I think he's one of the greatest writers of all time. And, he read everything from the Greeks to the moderns. He had a steel trap mind that could remember everything. And then he had this wonderful ability to translate it into magnificent prose and speech. So, he's become the greatest, I think, articulator of the Christian faith. The other thing I think that's very, very important, it's become even more important, we live in a postmodern world where, everything is about the here and now. You can't really express the idea of an other world. And Lewis is a bridge to that other world. And he does it, to particularly people who are literary, that they need something to, I think everybody intuitively knows that the universe is not an arbitrary alternative to nothingness, which is what was the first step in Lewis's conversion journey. And how do you get from there to Jesus Christ is not an easy step. And Lewis, in fits and starts and in tremendous reluctance, that's where he ended up. And so I do think that he's a tremendous, he satisfies this very deep place in our lives, to know that the universe is righteous and good, ultimately righteous and good.
You mentioned, we're talking 100 years ago, when he was, going off to war and things like that. And the things that he deals with are still relevant today. They're the same thing that people deal with, even in a very different era. Same issues.
Yeah. Well, he lost his mother to cancer when he was 9. And, he prayed for her deliverance and came to the conclusion that prayer doesn't work, because she wasn't delivered. I mean, he didn't approach God with any kind of awe or, as savior or judge, but more like a magician. He simply wanted he wanted God to restore the status quo, right? And then afterwards he would just simply go away. That's not how God works, right? He had a terrible relation with his father, and his father was sort of the picture of Christianity to him, which was a little bit political and not very inspiring, because basically in the Church of Ireland, what made you a Christian was that you weren't Catholic. And so he thought that was wrong. Went off to war. He saw the butchery of World War I. He says, either there's no God behind the universe, a God who's indifferent to good and evil, or worse, an evil God.
Yeah.
And so, that's the position he came from. He wasn't looking for God, but God was looking for him.
Wow. And the same thing's true. I mean, So can I consider you a C.S. Lewis expert by now?
Well, I've spent a lot of time. I'm not a scholar, but I probably have a real insight into his personality. What made him tick, because that's the sort of thing an actor, spends his time on.
Sure, sure. What do you find most interesting about him? What do you maybe like the most, or maybe even dislike the most about the man?
Well, there's not much I dislike, so I'll be upfront about that. I tell you what, man, as an actor, it's just so much fun to be that smart for 90 minutes. To be able to use the poetic prose, the articulation that there's a constellation of ideas you get from nowhere else. That's very, very exciting. He's very funny. He's got a huge personality, sucks the air out of the room when he comes in. He's. I think anybody that's read anything of him seriously comes away like, whoa, I want more of that.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know what? I've read most, if not all, of his works. And Surprised by Joy may. Mere Christianity is hard to beat. But let me just put it this way: I love Surprised by Joy, and so to hear that much of the film is based on that really excites me, because I think a lot of people who are casual Lewis readers haven't necessarily read that one, but that one is short and powerful, man.
Yeah, the title of the movie is The Most Reluctant Convert: The Untold Story of C.S. Lewis. Most people, I mean, obviously, if you're a scholar, you know the story, but most people, and certainly not on film, it's not been told on film.
Yeah.
And so, and it's his conversion that he keeps going back to again and again that drives him forward in the faith.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk a bit just for a second about Max McLean here instead of C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
Not to get the two confused. But so you're in New York City. You're in theater.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a successful run. You've had a successful career. Now you've got a film coming out. I know that amongst most in the theater community, there's a respect for what you've done, even if they're not Christians. How do your peers look at this?
I think they're pretty intrigued by it. I have to, most of the time I hire them, so I'm their boss, so I have to keep a little bit of a distance in terms of but I would say a very important factor is they respect the work.
Right.
They respect the writing.
Right.
Actors want something to chew on. There's a lot to chew on. They like humor. There's a lot of humor. They like production values, and we feel like that's really important to do. Execute to the highest levels.
Yeah.
Very suspicious about the Christian worldview. There's no doubt about it, because as one of my board members was telling me via email the other day, it says that, our culture has bought freedom, has pursued freedom at the expense of purpose and meaning. And of course, Christianity does not offer pure freedom in the sense that we understand it. It offers it in a sense that God understands it. Because freedom, as Lewis says, is the gift by which we most resemble our Maker. The ability to do the right thing. We're, as Paul will tell us, we're slaves to sin. That's what freedom is now. So we're willing to do that in expense for meaning and purpose. And yet what's important about the film is that it's all about meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
And people need to be reminded of meaning and purpose. And I think that's what this film does.
Has this opened up any conversations for you with people?
Well, it hasn't come out yet, but it does in terms of
in the past.
In the stage play, yes, we've had really, really meaningful conversations, and people have made faith commitments as a result of either seeing the film or being involved in the film.
Wow.
And not the film, the play.
The play,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
But I anticipate the same thing will happen with the film too. It's meant to engage the imagination. It's like the first step.
Yeah.
There's certainly Come to Jesus is really, really powerful and very effective. I never want to dismiss that. Lewis would say you can't underestimate the power of that. But he says, I can't do it, but those who can should do it with all their might. In fact, there was a great story where a vicar once asked Lewis to make such an appeal at an RAF meeting during the war. And he said, I can't do the heart stuff. You do the heart stuff. I'll do the head stuff. But he went on to say that, he feels like what's important about what he does, giving arguments, is that if people will not, he doesn't think that arguments or the presentation, the rational presentation, it doesn't make believers, but he says that the lack of arguments makes people not take it seriously. It's something that's not worth defending is soon abandoned, he said. And I thought, well, that's what's happened in colleges and universities, because Christianity is not thought as nefarious, it's thought as irrelevant.
Yeah.
And so therefore the case is not made.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the great things about Lewis is that he makes the case, and he makes it not just with his head, but with his heart.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I hope people will go see it. And it's important from a sort of a business standpoint, if you will, that you see it in theaters. If you are able to, that sends a real strong message and enables people like Max to make more films like this. So here's the website, cslewismovie.com. Looks just like that. You'll see clips from the movie. And if you go over here to the Get Tickets, it'll open up a window and it'll show you. It knows that I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So it's showing me a couple of dates, November 3rd, November 7th, options for me to go see it in theater, which, you know, if you're comfortable doing that, and most of us are these days, it's by far the best experience. And then I'm sure that they're working on, if they don't already have plans to make it available after that, but I don't even want to go there because I want you to go to the theaters. So go to cslewismovie.com, find out if it's in your area. If it is, get some friends, make a night of it, and you absolutely won't regret it. Max, I appreciate your time. I'll let you have the last word. Is there anything that we didn't cover, anything you want people to know before we walk away with this?
Well, I think you covered it. I mean, cslewismovie.com. It's all over the country. We've added 40 plus screens in Canada.
Nice.
And, you know, that's new because I'm really happy to say tickets are going fast. And there will be a life, you know, the movie, the subject is evergreen, so there'll be a life for a long time. But if you can make it the first week of November, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Max, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your work and respect your work because both on stage and on screen, just love it. And using your talent, your ability, your God-given talent to do a message like this, that really says a lot about you as an individual and a follower of Christ. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you guys watching, hanging out. Hit share, hit like, hit follow, hit subscribe, whatever you hit for these interviews. But share this one with some people and get some people. If this is one of your cities is on this list, consider yourself lucky, and go out and grab a group and go see The Most Reluctant Convert coming up soon. CSLewis.com. Appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll see you again next time here on Life Today Live.
God so loved the world. God so loved the world. In spite of our rebellion, in spite of our sins, in spite of our failures, God says, I love you. I love you.